Hello there! Welcome back to episode 80! That's right, episode 80 of Star Wars in the Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And first of all, we gotta talk, before we get into anything in this episode, we gotta talk about the epic confrontation. This is coming out on Friday, trivia is coming out on Wednesday, so we can talk about Epic Confrontation 1. And what a victory that was for Jared. What a victory that was. Connor made him work for it, and Spencer absolutely kept up with both of them throughout it all, but what a win for Jared.
Yeah.
That was an incredible match. I so enjoyed seeing that happen. I so enjoyed writing the questions. And I'm, even more hyped now than ever to see Michael McCoy versus Alden Diaz next month.
Yeah, very excited.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to get that out of the way because I'm still because we're recording this because we just got off that match. We did that match a few days ago, and it was just so much fun. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, it was it was a great time.
It was a great time. Go check out the Nerd Academy podcast. They're doing great stuff over there. They actually just had me on. Go check them out. I was on Knights of the Republic episode 100, talking with Jared and Spencer and Connor about LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. And also, it serves as a bit of a preview for the trivia stuff, because it was the three of them on the show with me before the three of them were on the show with us in that match. So, but yeah, we're going to talk about... today we are talking about the 1 hour 25 minute mark to the 2 hour 8 minute mark of Revenge of the Sith, then the Clone Wars episode Victory and Death, and then the last 5-6 minutes of Revenge of the Sith after that.
It's the Revenge of the Sandwich, if you will.
The Revenge of the Sandwich, Victory and Sandwich. Yeah, the Sandwich War. But anyway, do you want to get started into this?
Yeah, let's get into it. So we open with a few scenes. We're cutting through the aftermath of Order 66, Yoda saying his farewells to the Wookiees, taking off, Bail Organa trying to get in contact with Obi-Wan, who has escaped Commander Cody on Utapau. Anakin reunites with Padme. Padme starts to suspect that something is wrong. Anakin and Padme talk. Anakin's like, the Jedi did this, the Jedi did that. He says he has a special mission from the Chancellor, so he jets off to Mustafar, where he slaughters all of the Separatist leadership. Meanwhile, Palpatine, of course, giving his big speech, the First Galactic Empire and all that jazz. Obi-Wan and Yoda during that special session of the Senate, Obi-Wan and Yoda sneak back into the Jedi Temple. They recalibrate the code that was fraudulently put in place to tell the Jedi to come back to Coruscant. They tell all the Jedi to go into hiding and don't come back to the Jedi Temple. Yoda and Obi-Wan discover that it was Anakin who was going through the temple with the 501st Legion, slaughtering every Jedi he could find. Yoda gives Obi-Wan the assignment of going to neutralize Anakin. He says he will confront Darth Sidious. So, of course, Obi-Wan goes to Padme. It's a gut-wrenching moment, but Padme is in shock that Anakin has gone to the dark side, but Obi-Wan tries to convince her. He reveals that he knows that Anakin is the father before he leaves. So then Padme journeys to Mustafar alone, but Obi-Wan sneaks on board her ship. Anakin and Padme reunite on Mustafar, but Padme realizes that Obi-Wan was right and Anakin has changed. Anakin, of course, chokes Padme when he realizes that Obi-Wan stowed on board. So then Obi-Wan and Anakin jump into the Duel of Fates. Simultaneously, Yoda comes back to the Senate, confronts Darth Sidious. They are both engaged in battle. They're both going at it. Yoda, however, is bested or overwhelmed by Sidious's power, and realizes that in his current state, with his heart aching from the death of so many Jedi, he is in no state to take out the Sith Master. He retreats and is rescued by Bail Organa. Meanwhile, the duel rages on Mustafar. Anakin eventually tries a dangerous maneuver and is struck down by Obi-Wan, who leaves him there on the lava bank, leaves him for dead. Palpatine finds Vader just in time as he is getting all nice and toasty in the lava. He rescues him, brings him back to Coruscant, and turns him into the Darth Vader that we know in the original trilogy. Meanwhile, Padme dies in childbirth, but not before giving the names Luke and Leia to her twins. And of course, we round it out with Luke and Leia being delivered by Obi-Wan, Bail, and Yoda to their new parents. Leia as the Princess of Alderaan, also a fantastic book, by the way. Go check that out.
Yeah,
and
the
Luke
child of
as
the adopted.
and Luke as a humble farm boy on Tatooine.
Yep. And
and some of that will be covered because of the chronology of this. Some of that will be covered after Victory and Death, the last little bit. But
everything after Anakin is physically turned into Darth Vader, all the like wrapping up stuff is going to be covered after that. But pretty much everything else, which is pretty much everything, like this portion, the 1 hour 25 minutes to the 2 hour 8 minute mark, is like the crux of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm not saying nothing else happens in the first hour 25 minutes, though it's very important, but like this is some of the most important stuff that happens in the entire film.
Yeah. Undoubtedly. So, where do you want to start with this? Because this is just insanity.
Well, we have Obi-Wan and Yoda escaping the clutches of Order 66. First of all, I find it interesting that Obi-Wan survives Order 66 because of water. So, Obi-Wan is saved from death by water, and Anakin's later almost brought to death by fire.
Ironic.
And there's a lot of like water as like a life-giving thing for Star Wars. The entire book of Boba Fett is based around water as a life-giving property.
Yeah.
So is the redemption of Ben Solo in The Rise of Skywalker on Kef Bir, surrounded by, as our good friend Jared, the Dark Jedi, had once called it, I remember, the baptismal waters. He's being...
That's a good one.
He's being reborn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that could not be clearer here. I also really loved Obi-Wan. Look at what Obi-Wan departs Utapau in.
The Grievous's starfighter.
It's Grievous's ship.
Yeah. The galaxy turned upside down.
The galaxy turned upside down. Like, it does not matter anymore whose side you were on. It only matters now whose side you are on.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan is what Grievous was 5 hours ago before he died. An enemy of the Republic.
Yeah. Which is great, which is insane to think about.
Yep.
And yet here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, with that being said, also we have, of course, Yoda bidding his farewells to the Wookiees.
Goodbye, Tarful. Goodbye. Needless fan service.
Yeah, I mean, Chewbacca's presence, I admit it's a little bit gratuitous.
I already talked about this last episode. I won't harp on it too much, but...
Yeah, I mean, as a big Wookiee fan in general, as a big Chewbacca fan, I love seeing Chewbacca, but yeah, this is a little bit gratuitous. But I still think it's a nice touch, just adding on. Okay, we get it. Here's some more shit that Chewbacca went through.
Yeah, if Chewbacca actually did anything in this movie, like. Here's my thing. I feel like they're like split in a different strategy didn't really work. If he had been a blink and you miss it cameo, that would have been fine. If he'd actually played an important part in the movie, that would have been fine too. But like just wandering around for 5 minutes in the movie didn't really like do anything for me.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, he didn't.
He just kind of stood there and was Chewbacca.
Yeah. But, you know, as Obi-Wan and Bail escape, it's crazy the way they aren't even comprehending how big this is yet, you know. As I said, the scramble right after Order 66, everyone lost in the dark, trying to comprehend what's happening, trying to pick up the pieces. I just find that so compelling for some reason.
It's incredibly the post Order there. There's a very like, what do we do now feeling, and it's
exactly.
It's absolutely
like what comes now. Like, what are we even doing?
And I think that there is a and I think that like it is particularly freeing for us because everything we've been talking about in the prequel era has had an asterisk on it because we knew nothing mattered because Order 66 was going to come anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there were character growth, there was all that kind of stuff, but we knew the Republic was going to turn into the Empire and Order 66 was going to happen, which, by the way, did not, like, decrease the value of any of the media. I think Star Wars does a very good job at it, of that, actually. That even though we know what's going to happen, the media doesn't become less good because of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But still...
That's something that this doesn't... That's something that, in conjunction with this part of the Clone Wars, is an incredibly good job is done of kind of making it compelling, even though we know.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. But I was also gonna say, like, being in a place where Palpatine is not pulling the strings anymore because he's pulled all the strings he needed to, and it is really the characters making their own decisions, not being manipulated by anybody else, and to have us, like, analyzing their actual decisions, like, not made in service of some grand plan, it's pretty freeing, I gotta say.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, what about Padme and Anakin's talk when Anakin returns?
On Coruscant?
Are you ready for that? Yeah, on Coruscant. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Or is there more? Like, what do you make of this? Because
I only have one thought about that, and that's that one line from that conversation. Anakin turns away from so Padme goes, "Oh, Anakin, what are you gonna do?"
Yeah.
And Anakin turns away and, like, almost mumbles, "I will not betray the Republic."
Yeah.
His face is entirely shrouded in darkness. He's turned away from her. He's almost ashamed of what he's done. But he knows there's, like, no turning back now. So, like...
Yeah, he knows there's no turning back, and yet...
So it's very, like... This is no longer... I refuse to call him Anakin in the script anymore. I want to call him Vader. You know what I mean? Because that's who he is. Anakin doesn't really exist anymore. There is no there is no levity to this guy. There is no there is no Jedi hero we knew. This is only the, like, almost satanic crusader of Darth Vader that we...
Yeah, absolutely. And yet, I mean, yeah, it's just there's only so many times I could use the word heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, but that's what this is.
It is.
That's what all this is. It's so sad watching Anakin talk to Padme, because even as everything is kind of crumbling and coming apart at the seams, Anakin is still trying to hold it all together and get the life that he wants for him and Padme. The way he's talking, you know, the way he's like, we won't have to hide anymore. Everything will be different. It's just yeah.
Yeah. And
it's just heartbreaking, you know. Can just seeing where he's going and what's happening,
how far he's fallen
to his psyche. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to get to Mustafar because there's some interesting symbolism with Mustafar that I actually quite adore. Here's what I'm talking about with Mustafar. So, due to the Star Wars virtual reality experience Vader Immortal, we now know that Mustafar wasn't always like it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Mustafar used to be a lush planet, but then there is this artifact that got created that turned the entire planet into a hellish landscape called the Bright Star. And so what we're saying is the planet used to be this, like, heroic, almost, planet. You know what I mean? This, like, nice planet. But then it turned, like, basically to the dark side. Is there anybody we know going to that planet who might fit that description?
Obi-Wan?
Oh, come on, Jacob.
Who are you thinking of?
Anakin.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Anakin is
But of course,
Mustafar
Anakin falls.
in a lot of ways. Like Anakin and Mustafar are kind of like Vader and Mustafar are kind of kindred spirits because they've become these almost unrecognizable monsters from what they were meant to be. And eventually, the Bright Star gets destroyed. And Mustafar starts healing. But by the time of the Rise of Skywalker, there's only a small patch on Mustafar that's actually healed, while the rest is like it's still incredibly molten and all that kind of stuff. And it's the same thing. Like, even if Vader's been dead for 50 years, it's gonna take, or 100 years or whatever, it's gonna take a long time for the galaxy to reel from the effects of his tyranny on the galaxy.
Yeah.
Which I think is incredibly not insightful. I think this is incredibly well executed.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, anything else on this part? You're ready to get to Anakin's kind of his main event on Mustafar? I guess not the main event, but
the slaughtering of the Separatist leaders?
Yeah, because that is just, he goes in. It is brutal.
I love how hollow it feels. That's the other thing. Like, Anakin is doing something that the Republic has always wanted to do in the war. Like, it's been a main goal of him and all of us through this, like, through the Clone Wars and watching this series and all that kind of stuff. Like, he fucking, like, cut down Nute Gunray. Nute Gunray's a son of a bitch. Like, we hate Nute Gunray.
Yeah.
But I don't feel anything.
He does it so easily.
But I don't feel anything as Nute Gunray goes down. I don't feel anything as Papa the Lesser goes down. I don't feel anything as Wat Tambor goes down, except for boiling hatred at Anakin that he killed my boy Wat Tambor. It's all so hollow, because it's not this heroic act. It is the act of a monster. It's the act of this horrible, horrible person.
Yeah, it is, and it also the way he does, just the way he does it so effortlessly. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It's brutal, and like we got the yellow eyes too. Like, the yellow eyes seals the deal with me with Anakin versus Vader. The yellow eyes are haunting. You know somebody's gone bad when that's happened. There's a demonic sense to having those yellow eyes, like Palpatine does, like Maul does, like Vader does. It's incredible and it's terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Let's do we want to talk about Palpatine's special session of Congress?
Yes, let's get to it. This is the moment that he's been waiting for. This is now Emperor. That's Emperor Palpatine to you, and he is in full, absolutely full swing. He has been waiting for this moment for 30 years.
Might I say this is the best scene in the movie?
You might. I would be shocked, but
yeah, this is the best scene in the movie. I mean, like, it's a tie between this and Plagueis. Like, Plagueis is very good, but like, the speech that Palpatine gives into the Senate is horrifying, and it horrifies me more and more with the real world parallels. You know, when I watched this for the first time, I was like, oh my god, this is horrifying. It's also like I could never imagine people, people like buying into this sort of hatred and vitriol and all that kind of stuff. And then a few years ago, I heard this guy talking on television, stoking up fear and hatred and anger, just like Palpatine, with the fake news media. And the phony elections, folks. And, like, the rise of what Donald Trump has started to do and what the Republican Party has started to do in America, not to get too political on this, but, like, is very, very, very similar to what Palpatine's doing in this scene. And, by the way, I'm not making much of this up because George Lucas, and I will get to this later, he fully admits that he based, there's one Anakin line later, Vader line, that he based off of a line from a speech by George W. Bush.
Yeah, no, it's totally about, like, the rise of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, Star Wars is inherently political, and this is one of the greatest scenes because of that.
Yeah.
You know, you know, and again, there's that line, of course, of and you know, we gotta talk about this line. It's a meme. It's become a meme, but it's incredibly prudent, if maybe a little bit on the nose. So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
Yeah.
There's that Lucas line that he gives as a lot of context for Revenge of the Sith. Democracies aren't overthrown; they're given away.
Yeah.
They're not taken; they're gladly gifted.
That's exactly what happens.
It is exactly what happens. And we've seen it happen in our real world too.
Yeah, and even with Palpatine, you know, obviously he is a maestro of deception and manipulation and being the mind twisting Dark Lord that he is. But even so, it's still incredible to see just what he pulls off when he gets like 90%, 80% of the Galactic Senate to be like, oh yeah, let's turn into an empire. Let's become a dictatorship. This is such a great idea. We need, or not even this is a great idea, but like, we need this. We need to do this. It's pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a horrifying speech, and you know, there's that line, and this is one of the biggest breaks between memes in the movie, but we gotta talk about, there are 3 memes in this scene. We already have the Citadel already dies, but the one I want to talk about, which is a meme, but it's also just such a great manipulation tactic by Palpatine. The attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed, but I assure you, my resolve has never been stronger.
Great line.
It's a horrifying line, is what it is. It is it's crazy how Palpatine simultaneously victimizes himself and makes himself seem stronger at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's classic. This is like classic dictatorial things. He's like, oh, I'm doing it for our own safety, for our own security.
Yep.
I'm doing it because there was an attempt on power, like because something already,
because they're attacking me, and by attacking me,
no,
they're not just attacking me, they're attacking you.
Yeah, like
yeah.
There's a lot of comparisons I could make, but I know, I think I'll leave that to our listeners. You know, y'all know what's up. But anyway, so while that's happening, then of course, unless you have more to say,
well, I want to talk about the nail in the coffin. I just want to say the nail in the coffin words because they're also another meme. because I'm keeping track of all the memes, and I will reveal my final intention with the memes at the end. I told you, Jacob, this earlier, but the Republic would be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a more safe and secure society. And they just all applaud along.
Yeah. And that the safe and secure society to me.
Yep.
That's where it is.
Yeah.
That's like the.
And by the way, notice that this takeover,
comparison.
by the way, other than like the Jedi murder, but notice that in every other way, except for Order 66, that this takeover is completely peaceful.
Yeah. They hand it, the Senate gladly
just gives the entire Republic over to Palpatine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Should we go to I want to talk about one more line on Mustafar before we go on.
Of course.
The war is over. Lord Sidious promised us peace.
Oh yeah, such a good line. Anakin's like, no peace for you.
It's one of those things where, you know, Newt Gunray was one of the first dominoes to fall in Sidious' scheme. He was there doing evil stuff from the beginning, and yet he is disposed of like every other pawn of Sidious's when he's no longer needed. He was deceived by many of the same lies the entire galaxy was the entire time. But with the swipe of Anakin's lightsaber, with the swipe of Vader's lightsaber, he's gone. I almost feel bad for him. Almost.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah. You got anything else, or should we go on to other things?
I think we need to get on to Anakin and Yoda. Obi-Wan and Yoda venturing into the temple. This opening scene, just watching them on the staircase, just knife through those clones. You know, Yoda has that one thing where he like jumps into the clone's face and like stabs him in the
chest.
In the chest. Like it already it's like a moment where you're like, oh damn. But like after the Clone Wars, after everything that we know, that is just so much sadder and it hit me so much harder, you know, realizing even Yoda, even Yoda, who's a little more aloof from the war, you know, his experiences with the clones, and Obi-Wan, obviously, his experiences with the clones, all that camaraderie, all the times they work together, use the Force to save the clones' butts, all the times they, like, all their missions together. And it's all kind of for naught in this moment when they're forced to, when they're kind of forced to
move against them, to
get violent with them. It's tragic.
Very quickly in the temple, because I don't have much in the temple, but we got two memes in the temple. The infamous "I can't watch anymore," and of course the other one, when Obi-Wan goes to see Padme. I've watched security holograms of him killing youngling. Do you have anything for inside the temple? Because there's a line when Obi-Wan goes to confront Padme that I really want to get to.
Anything for inside the temple? I think just I mean we haven't really gotten to the surveillance part yet, so yeah, just Obi-Wan saying, "Who could have done this?"
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Anakin going absolutely nuts on the Separatist Council is just an amazing cut. It's so chilling. But yeah, on to you. What do you want to take it from here?
Well, also I want to point out this thing too in the temple. Yoda sees all those dead bodies of the younglings and the Padawans.
Yeah.
Like he saw on Moraband.
Like he did.
In
Absolutely.
season 6. Or wherever that was. The wellspring of light for wherever that was. That vision came true. And that's heartbreaking. But yeah, let's talk about this line, and I want to tell you how pleasing this line was to hear from me. He was deceived by a lie, we all were. It appears that the Chancellor is behind everything, including the war. Palpatine is the Sith Lord we've been looking for. After the death of Count Dooku, Anakin became his new apprentice.
Yeah.
It's so nice to hear the heroes finally acknowledge the plan that we've been knowing it has been going on for like 2.5 years now.
Yeah, and yet it's terrible because
I mean it's heartbreaking.
Like,
don't get me wrong, but like it's finally great to just not be held in suspense anymore and be like, you're so close. No, they finally got it now.
The way they do it is incredible. The way they do a lot of this Clone Wars is incredible because they're like, okay, we can inflict maximum pain by right after it's too late. We're gonna have the hero just when it's just too late enough for everything to be in motion. Now the hero can find out how it all went down. Now they can find out Order 66. Now they can figure it out when it's already just too late.
Just too late, yeah. Absolutely. I really do. I think that I just love that line being said. And I think it was very important to get that line being said.
Yeah.
What do you got next, Jacob?
Man, oh man, I have a lot.
Yeah. Should we go straight to Mustafar, or should we not?
I mean, I think we need to talk about Obi-Wan and his moment. Obviously the Yoda line. If into the security recordings you go, only pain will you find. Yeah. But Obi-Wan is, of course, being Obi-Wan, he's like, no, I have to know. And boy, does he find pain. Let's just say.
Oh yeah.
That moment is incredible.
Ewan acts his heart out.
Even it's incredible for Obi-Wan because even after he sees what Anakin has done, he still says to Yoda, "I can't kill Obi-Wan. He's my brother. I can't do
kill
this."
Anakin,
yeah, I can't kill Anakin. He's my brother. I can't do this. And obviously Yoda, I think he ultimately makes the right call, but that scene right there is, oh my gosh, that one hurts.
It really does. Absolutely, it really does hurt. It definitely does hurt. Should we go on to Mustafar, other Mustafar stuff?
You don't have anything for that? You want to go on?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I don't have a ton for that. I just wanted to kind of bring some attention to that little scene of Obi-Wan seeing Anakin talking it through with Yoda, just because I think it emotionally, that moment hit me so hard, and I think it's not talked about enough as such a great moment, as I think a lot of these moments in Revenge of the Sith are not talked about enough.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah. But with that being said, yeah.
Let's move on. Send a message to the ships of the Trade Federation. All droid units must shut down immediately. And just like that, the CIS army, the Separatist army, the battle droids, gone. Like that, with basically 6 words. It's incredible to me how we see that these two armies were basically just disposable distractions for Palpatine.
Yeah, they were. They really were. Palpatine, he does not care.
He does not care, and it's frightening. It's just frightening to see all of that happen, you know what I mean?
It is. It absolutely is.
And then Padme arrives on Mustafar, and I think we gotta talk about this Padme conversation with Vader.
Oh yeah, the Padme and Anakin talking is
it breaks me every time.
yeah, but it's incredible. Like
Yeah.
we kind of find out like Eli, you were right, we were right. He's always been afraid of Obi-Wan turning on him. We just get to see his full delusions about his power, how he was bringing peace. He's even going to overthrow the Chancellor. I think the main upshot of this, of everything he's saying, when he just kind of like the way he just kind of goes completely off the rails, is like we can rule the galaxy, we can overthrow the Chancellor, we can do this, we can do that. No, everything's going to be perfect. It's going to be amazing. Is his overwhelming desire to use his power to save the ones he loves, obviously, and to take what he wants and make the life for himself that he wants. And that's something that the Jedi, obviously, with the Jedi Code, with his devotion to the Jedi, that's something that he's kind of been held back from. But now, in Revenge of the Sith, we kind of start to see him break through that hesitation, and he's like, "No, screw this. I'm gonna I'm gonna use my power." Like he's like, "I know I can be the most powerful person in the universe.
Yeah.
I can take whatever I want. I can build the life for myself that I want." Which kind of going back through his life to the very beginning is something that he's never been able to do. He's never had enough. Be it first, it was not enough agency with the Jedi. Then in the later years of the Jedi, just not enough power, not enough agency. Both those things, and that's when he finally. This is when he finally starts to crack.
Yeah. There is that line, and this is the real turning point for me. You know, Padme says to Anakin, "Anakin, all I want is your love," and Vader replies, "Love won't save you, Padme. Only my new powers can do that."
Such a good line.
It is like again, that line sucks in terms of dialogue writing, but it works perfectly here. Like I don't like it in terms of dialogue writing, but it works perfectly here. It shows exactly how far Anakin's gone. Like he is obsessed with like preventing things with his new power. You know what I mean? I wrote here, Vader's main goal isn't Padme anymore, it's the act of being able to save her.
Yeah.
It's not about her feelings anymore, it's just about him being able to save her.
Exactly, like he doesn't, it's a reflection, as much as he loves her, and as much as he's desperate to save her, it's a reflection, the way, his change of kind of his change in mindset that we see here is a reflection of the fact that he like it becomes to him about his, like you said, it becomes about his own power. It becomes about, we've talked about this. I remember we talked about this with Alden Diaz, psychological complexity of Anakin Skywalker. If you're listening to this, if you haven't listened to that, go back and check it out. Great episode. Alden Diaz, really great podcaster. He had a lot of great things to say. So that's a great one to go check out from the vault if you're looking for something more. The way that he becomes so not only possessive, but he becomes manic in his kind of desire to. He doesn't see it this way, but by the end of his time as Anakin, before he becomes Vader, it's kind of this manic desire to have kind of bend everything and everyone that he loves to his will. And he doesn't really understand that other people can have profoundly different experiences and perspectives and wants and needs and values, you know, and that is kind of his undoing.
Yeah.
In the end.
Anakin, I gotta do I mean, Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow. I don't know you anymore. Because of Obi-Wan? Because of you, what you've done, what you plan to do. Liar! There's 3 memes. Just knocked out of the park. and then Vader does the unthinkable. Vader force chokes his own wife.
Yeah.
That is the moment where it's become very clear that Anakin's gone, and that's Vader. Because
that's the second unforgivable act. The first was Mace Windu.
Yeah, and this is such an extremely important one as well, because the whole point of Anakin going to the dark side was to keep Padme safe, and now he's harmed her.
That's kind of the essence. That right there is the essence of the dark side of Anakin's journey.
Yep.
So try as you might, like.
Yep.
He became the very thing he swore to destroy.
And Obi-Wan says that to him. You know, there's that. They're all that entire dialogue sequence between Anakin and between Vader and Obi-Wan. You turned her against me! You have done that yourself!
Yeah.
You have allowed this dark lord to twist your mind until now you've become the very thing you swore to destroy. Don't lecture me, Obi-Wan. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. Your new empire?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And then I want to call attention to this line. This is something I found that's really crazy to me. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Yeah, this preamble is so good.
That line specific. So here's something interesting. 9 days after the terrible 9/11 assault on the Twin Towers in New York City, George W. Bush gave an address to both houses of Congress of the United States. 9 days, September 20th, 2001. And in the speech he said, either you're with us or you're with the terrorists. He was issuing that threat to other countries. It is Anakin's line, if you're not with me, then you're my enemy, is a direct steal from that line. Specifically, George Lucas has confirmed this on many occasions. Star Wars is inherently political, and Star Wars is a lot about the effect of certain, I don't want to put the blame, but I'm going to, Republican presidents. Like, let's be real. Original trilogy was the Nixon trilogy. The prequel trilogy was the Bush trilogy.
Yeah.
And the sequel trilogy...
I mean, it was Johnson as well, because if the originals...
Yeah, but
that was about... That was kind of about Vietnam, so it's impossible to ignore his hand in that as well.
Yeah, a little bit Johnson, but Johnson... But it was about, like, the whole Nixon because of the whole Empire thing. Like, specifically, Empire was what Lucas was worried about what Nixon was going to do with the executive branch after the extension of...
That's true.
If he had resigned due to the Watergate scandal, there were talks of him trying to amend the Constitution, of Nixon trying to amend the Constitution for a third term. And Lucas was very inspired by that from what I know. And, you know, the prequels didn't start out as the Bush trilogy, but they very much became the Bush trilogy. And I would argue the same thing with the sequels and Trump. Like, they didn't start, like both Force Awakens and Phantom Menace were released before Bush and before Trump and Bush came into office respectively, but the last two were made in those terms, and I feel like are very much reactions to that.
Yeah, I'd say more so for the
prequels. Yeah,
the prequels. I think the prequels were a bit more political. I think the sequels kind of for better or for worse, kind of shied away from that a little bit more to be a little bit more marketable, unfortunately. So I guess I would say for worse, but
maybe I feel like you can't, like, for me, that Rise of Skywalker scene, like the "There Are More of Us" Poe, like that was very like that. I feel like that had a lot of similarities to what we all experienced in the 2020 election. Like,
Perhaps. I mean,
like
that was before though, so
I know, but like it was an aspirational thing.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
again, it was that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I disagree, but all right.
But yeah,
I'll accept it.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I know, especially in some of the earlier parts of Revenge of the Sith, I was on it for the dialogue. Said a bit of it's a little clunky, but this entire Mustafar scene, um, everything, Anakin talking to Padme, Anakin talking to Obi-Wan. I think the dialogue here I couldn't get enough of it because
it's very good. It's just very good.
every single line I think is so perfect, and especially having having with the Clone Wars, with everything that we know, every single line is just so laden with meaning, and every single line just makes 20 different things from the Clone Wars and from Attack of the Clones flash through my mind. It's just so the dialogue here is just so compelling. It's so tight. Yes, it is a little bit dramatic. It's a bit
But that's Revenge of the Sith for you.
yeah, it's a bit of a it's very, very space opera-y.
Yeah.
And this kind of reminds you that yes, Star Wars is commonly referred to as a space opera for a reason, and it's moments like this that it does it well though. It does it well. I'll say that. Um, it works perfectly for once. For once in the prequels, I think for all the things I love about them, the dialogue often not one of them. No complaints here. Absolutely no complaints.
Absolutely, I agree with you. We also have to talk about the line after, "If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. Only a Sith deals in absolutes." To which Vader, of course, responds, "Are you sure about that?" And Obi-Wan says, "Absolutely." You've all seen the memes. Come on.
Yeah. I certainly have.
Now we have our dual fights. We have Vader and Obi-Wan, and we have Yoda and Sidious. I will admit to you, I like one of these duels a lot more than the other one. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts about both of these duels.
Oh man, I think it's great the way they cut back and forth in between them, the way they lay out those parallels. Obviously, I think the drama is a little bit heightened by watching them all cut together, as you can do, as I have done many times on YouTube. But oh my goodness, Duel of the Fates,
Battle of Heroes, are you saying?
Battle of the Heroes. So yeah, not Duel of the Fates. Yeah, Battle of the Heroes might just be my favorite lightsaber duel in Star Wars. It might just be the way the intro to it, the transition into the duel, the choreography is just so fast and fluent. It's absolutely perfect. For the context of them knowing each other so well, I feel like I'm able to overlook the fact that, hey, this seems a little bit too elaborate at times. It just works, and it works perfectly. The variety of moves and locations is perfect. The way they almost both fall into lava and die many times, just because they're willing to go to such extremes, because they just have that drive to defeat each other. Their resolve, both Anakin and both Vader and Obi-Wan's resolve, both their resolves are so strong. And yeah, this just makes for a really legendary Star Wars moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It is truly a legendary Star Wars moment. I think that if this duel were a minute and a half shorter, Battle of Heroes, it would have been perfect. I think it goes.
You thought it was too long?
I think it was. I think Battle of Heroes goes on for a little too long. Yeah.
Personally, I loved the way it felt so drawn out. I loved the way it was like, oh, they are completely evenly matched because they know each other so well. They literally are predicting each other's every move. I think I love the way it felt more drawn out, more epic. But I understand if you thought otherwise.
Yeah. No,
because it's undeniably baroque, shall we say, but I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. I will say this, I used to be a bigger fan of Sidious and Yoda's duel than I am now. Like, I like them both as duelists, but you gotta admit both of them are kind of silly as duelists. And it works against non-silly duelists, but when you have two, like, really silly duelists fighting against each other, it doesn't really work. Like, you know,
Yeah.
Sidious is doing his thing with his weird lunges and all that kind of stuff. And there's that like there's that whole like groan he does, you know what I mean? Like when he does that blade lock with Yoda, he goes ah, like that's really weird. And then Yoda's flipping all over the place, but he's not dealing with somebody who's like calmly countering those. He's dealing with somebody who also does not know how to lightsaber duel. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, as for the Yoda duel, I think that my favorite part is their little trash talking segment before it begins. Yoda, sorry man, your line about misplaced faith in Palpatine's apprentice, about 20 years too early. Just a cool 2 decades off, but he ended up being right. He did have the last laugh.
Yeah, I will say, my favorite line from Yoda in the preamble to this fight is, "At an end your rule is, and not short enough it was." Like, I love that Yoda, like, just had his entire order collapse around him, and yet he can still dish out sass to Sidious like it's no one's business.
Yeah.
Like, I legitimately love that. It's why Yoda's one of my favorite. Like, he still can be like the gremlin Yoda, even after like the entire Jedi is just like completely died around him. Like, what a legend, man.
Yeah, absolutely. The way he goes at Yoda, whoosh.
It's great. And like. And there's definitely a part of this. I will say this to you, Jacob. There is definitely a part of both of these fights where, like, when Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting on that narrow pipe, and when Palpatine's chucking Senate paws at Yoda, there is very much of a Revenge of the Sith factor. I feel in this, which is like the over the top factor. Like, we get it. The duels are supposed to be epic, but we really had to go this far.
Yeah.
We really had to go chucking the Senate this far.
Yeah. I just keep thinking just about the robot the robot chicken thing where you got the claymation Palpatine saying, I threw the Senate at him, the whole Senate. Yeah, and that's a bit what it feels like, where it's like, oh man, it's a bit over the top. But obviously Yoda put up a great fight, but he just wasn't in the right mindset, unfortunately, with what had just happened. I think on a good day, he could probably put up more of a fight against Sidious.
Yeah. I mean,
but again, I do love... Sorry, go ahead.
He's very demoralized right now.
Yeah, incredibly demoralized. That being said, I do love the little parallel between Yoda dropping out of a hatch, dropping out of a vertical hatch into the speeder in Revenge of the Sith, and Luke dropping out of a similar hatch into the Falcon in The Empire Strikes Back. In both those moments, obviously suffering horrendous defeats.
Yeah. And I love that delivery by Frank Oz of Yoda's line, "Into exile I must go. Failed I have." Is this just like, you hear the gravity of Yoda realize, like, oh shit, I fucked up here. This is on me.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, we have 5 memes in the next minute of content, so I just want to I want to get through all of them very quickly. Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil! From my point of view, the Jedi are evil! Well, then you are lost! More fighting ensues. It's over, Anakin! Say it with me. I have the high ground! Don't try it! You underestimate my power. Don't try it! And then, of course, the infamous speech. You are the chosen one! It was that you destroy us, did not join them! Bring balance to the Force! Don't leave it in darkness! I hate you! You're my brother, Anakin! I love you! Okay, I dispensed with all the memes. But do we want? Let's talk about the final conclusion of Vader and Obi-Wan's fight, because it is easily the best part of the fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I really do love the speech that that Obi-Wan gives to Vader is heartbreaking. It just works in all the most horrifying and just gut-wrenching ways.
Yeah. It is absolutely gut-wrenching.
It really is, and there's also the and I'd love to talk about the immolation scene, the Anakin being burned. Yeah. Literally, the fire and the lava are burning away the last of what remained of Anakin's humanity. He is being turned into this machine by this fire and by this ultimate destructive material on Mustafar, this destructive planet.
Yeah.
And it's hard to figure out what's more disgusting. The burnt to a crisp Anakin lying there on the Mustafar shores, or what Palpatine will eventually make him into.
Yeah.
It's
also, to me, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's upsetting, despite what we see. Obviously, we know the context. It's still absolutely heart-wrenching to watch Obi-Wan leave him there. To watch Obi-Wan leave him for dead.
Yeah.
But I mean, what choice does he really have? He's like, my apprentice is gone. This is not the person I knew.
Yeah.
And that bit of dialogue there also. I mean, obviously, like, you were my brother. You said you were supposed to. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. And then before that, it was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them. It's just that part is absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's just tragic. It is just tragic. And yeah, it's sickening to me. Do we want to get to Polis Massa?
Let me see if I have anything. Yeah, in Obi-Wan's defeat of Anakin, in my notes I just put, fuck, what is there even to say?
Yep.
Because first time I watched it in a few years, it is just seared into my mind now. It is like, of everything that this movie and the way that we've been watching it, it's just one gut punch after another. But yep. Even so, it stands out, that moment. It is seared into my mind, and it stands out. It is one of the most chilling, stomach churning, eye moistening,
yep,
forehead aching moments I've ever watched. Like, 100%. Because being such a big Star Wars fan, obviously, it hits pretty hard. Polis Massa. I mean, Palpatine finding Vader. I don't have a lot for that. I mean, I remember reading somewhere that this was the moment, or a kind of Palpatine seeing how Vader had been kind of defeated and humiliated by Obi-Wan, who he had been sent to kill, or he had been kind of supposed to kill, I guess, and Anakin then being put in the suit, Vader being put in the suit. It was in that moment he realized that Vader wouldn't be the perfect apprentice, his power wouldn't be at 100%, and that he wouldn't be the perfect tool to perpetuate the legacy of the Sith. What do you think about that?
I mean, I know that's a Legends concept, but it works really well in canon because we see in the Darth Vader comic, masterfully written by Mr. Charles Soule, that Palpatine tries to replace Vader in that comic like every 5 seconds.
He does, yeah.
Like he always fails because Anakin always defeats whoever he's trying to replace him with. But like, you know, he still tries. You know, and it's made very clear to Vader that he is a pawn of Palpatine, but he's not special as a pawn of Palpatine. He can be replaced the moment somebody better comes along.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that makes him special is that until Luke, no one better comes along.
Yep.
Even though Palpatine, as we see in these comics, Palpatine is kind of constantly testing him, constantly trying to like kind of get Vader. He's constantly kind of trying to goad Vader into it. He's like, oh, don't you want to betray me? He's constantly putting in positions to betray him, and yet Vader really is that guy.
Yep.
Up until Return of the Jedi.
Up until Return of the Jedi, you know.
He's just that guy.
Yep. And like, if we want to incorporate Legends in there, the one time he gets defeated between what was it? The one time he gets defeated between Sith and Jedi is by Starkiller in that game. And what does in The Force Unleashed? And what does Palpatine immediately do to Starkiller? He's like, okay, I see you're better than Vader. Join me and kill him and become my new apprentice.
Yeah.
It's right out of his playbook. It is like literally right out of his playbook.
This moment.
By the way, I love that they just go to this random fucking asteroid and all that. It's like it's the most random and out of nowhere part of this movie, and I love it so much.
Yeah, they're just like, well, we got to go somewhere.
Asteroid it is.
Polis Massa.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that is.
So, I also gotta say the parallel of Anakin and Padme both losing their lives in a way, but then gaining new life at the same time. Padme through Luke and Leia, and Anakin through the suit.
Yeah.
And like those simultaneous ways, like the birth being like the light side, and and Vader is being the dark side, is like poetry.
Yeah.
It just works.
It is absolutely, especially considering that, especially for Leia, I think, you know, I understand, thinking about it now, I understand much more why you were kind of pissed off that kind of the way that Padme had kind of gotten the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
In Revenge of the Sith, because realizing what she meant in universe, in the real world, you know, it really makes me glad that we have Leia. And yet, when we consider everything that Padme did, everything that she was in the Clone Wars, like, what do you think of Padme in the Clone Wars? The images that pop in your mind: this great leader, brave, resourceful, amazing. And then in Revenge of the Sith, all we get to see of her is, oh, Anakin, I'm scared. Anakin, what's wrong? Anakin, please come home. And then, for all the power of the Star Wars universe, she dies in childbirth.
And no, you know how she dies? We gotta talk about this line, because like, I'm not gonna harp on this line because, again, I don't like being super negative on this show. Jacob, how did she die?
She lost the will to live.
She lost the will to live.
I mean, wasn't there something where, and maybe it's in Legends, or maybe it was some kind of a fan headcanon thing. There's something that alleges that she died because Palpatine was somehow like draining her life energy to sustain Anakin or something.
Yeah, I know that theory.
You know anything about that?
I don't agree.
That's just a theory, right?
Yeah, it's a theory, and I don't agree with it. I think she died weird from the choking and the childbirth.
Yeah.
I think that like all that effort and strain put on her body just killed her.
Yeah.
That is my personal headcanon. I think losing the will to live is like maybe one of the most stupid lines of dialogue in the 9
Yeah.
movies. By far.
It could have just been like, I mean, I think it is kind of,
Like losing the
it
will to live
is,
is a real thing, but Padme?
yeah.
Really?
I think it is kind of poetic and tragic when you really think, if you just kind of accept it and suspend disbelief, it's kind of not amazing, but it's astonishing, thinking, oh my gosh, Padme, this kind of indomitable, formidable, strong, resilient character has been heartbroken by Anakin to the point where she's just can't
Yeah,
even
see,
live
I don't agree with that,
like,
but
I think if you suspend disbelief a little bit, it makes for a really punchy ending to her story emotionally.
if it works
But
for you.
it also, like, I'm torn about whether or not it works for me.
Okay.
I think in context of the story, to make it hit emotionally, it absolutely works. And the more you think about it, like if you suspend disbelief on the line sounding dumb, the more you think about it, the more you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh my God, that's so sad. But at the same time, for Padme as a character, she deserves better, I think.
Yeah, I'm still not very. I don't vibe with it myself, but whatever. Let's move on. Um, but we get but let's talk about Luke and Leia. We welcome Luke and Leia Skywalker into the galaxy, and it is so incredibly rewarding watching them being born, knowing that we are going to through the next many years in a galaxy watch their lives play out. We're gonna
Yeah,
see them being born. We're gonna see them grow up. We're gonna see them grow old, and we're gonna see them die. There's something incredibly poetic about that and incredibly heartfelt about, knowing the life they have ahead of them and knowing all the challenges and all the successes and everything in between that they're going to face. I don't know, I think that's beautiful.
yeah, it really is. I mean, even among all the tragedy that is the end of this movie, gosh, I mean, yeah, that moment when the twin sun starts playing, and then when twin sun starts playing, and then when Leia's theme starts playing, oh my gosh, goosebumps! Like that moment right there. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness gracious, it is so good.
And then we gotta rise Lord Vader. We gotta rise Lord Vader. It seems in your anger you killed her. Jacob, say the word with me, okay? No! Or as Backstroke of the
Such a
West
meme.
would say, do not want!
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, what is there to say about this moment? It's
see,
incredible.
it's. I know it's been memed to death, but seeing Vader fully realize everything and just break down in that new suit of armor voiced by James Earl Jones is cinema.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it.
Obviously,
It is
yeah,
just cinema.
yeah. I think obviously, like I say, talking about Anakin kind of trying to take things into his own hands and use his power to kind of sculpt his own life, I guess you would say, beyond the Jedi, kind of like I said before, take what he wants, use his power for him and Padme. I think it's in this moment, this is kind of the final act in everything crumbling. When after everything with that that scene with Padme, um, when they're both looking out and crying, where I said, this kind of represents Anakin realizing that things aren't going to be the way he wants them to be. Um, this is kind of the final moment when he realizes, oh, they're really not going to be how I want them to be. I'm in this suit. Padme is dead. The Jedi are gone. I now have to be the Dark Apprentice of Palpatine.
Yeah,
It's kind
absolutely.
of the final it's a final moment of realization for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, do you got anything else, or should we go on to victory and death finally?
No, just absolutely iconic. But Palpatine, when he says, "In your anger, you killed her," while it is kind of a what I told you was true from a certain point of view moment, but also that is kind of the lie, the fib that becomes Palpatine's undoing. When Vader realizes Palpatine lied to him, she did have her kids,
Yeah,
and that ends up creating so much of the doubt and resentment that build up in Vader toward his master over the years.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, with that said, shall we?
Yep, we should.
Victory and death?
Yep, let's do it. In victory and death, um, uh, Ahsoka and Rex manage to escape the clone troopers and make their own plan. Maul destroys the hyperdrive, and they emerge from hyperspace on the extremely damaged Star Destroyer above the moon. Eventually, Ahsoka and Rex find a shuttle in the hangar, but they also see Jesse and the rest of the clones waiting in the hangar for them. Eventually, they fight their way through the clones. Ahsoka very careful not to kill any of them. Maul escapes in the shuttle. Ahsoka pulls him back with the Force, but eventually it becomes a choice between capturing him and saving Rex, and she chooses Rex. The next few minutes are a mad skydiving sequence where Ahsoka tries to fall onto a Republic Y-wing that Rex is trying to fly away from the wreckage of the Star Destroyer. The Star Destroyer completely crashes to the ground, and Ahsoka and Rex make it out. Several days later, Ahsoka drops her lightsabers to frame her to fake her death, and puts the clone trooper helmets on spikes. We then flash forward several years later. The planet has frozen over. There's snow, and the planet and the moon is visited by Darth Vader and the Empire. Darth Vader picks up Ahsoka's lightsaber, ignites it, remembers the life he used to have with his former Padawan, sees the convor, Ahsoka's like bird, flying above him, and then finally departs, leaving us with the final shot of the Clone Wars, which is the infamous clone trooper helmet lying in the snow. Should we
It's
get
really
to it?
fantastic.
It
Yeah,
this is my second favorite episode of the Clone Wars, second only to the Deserter. So I had to
yeah.
do the summary of it.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
Where do we even start? I just realized that we kind of went through all of Revenge of the Sith, which I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it works anyway. So where do we start with victory and death?
I want to talk about I want to talk about the ultimate moral dilemma that Ahsoka and Brex face in this episode: to kill the clones or to not kill the clones. Because we see, and this has been pointed out a lot, like Ahsoka makes a very clear choice not to kill the clones, and then Obi-Wan and Yoda just slice and dice through them in Revenge of the Sith. Who do you think's right?
I think obviously Ahsoka, it's an amazing decision that she makes. It's such a culmination of her story, everything, her benevolence, the way that she kind of represents the best of the Jedi, while not being a Jedi herself, she'd taken all these lessons from Anakin, Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, Yoda, Padme, everyone who she's been mentored by, everyone who's kind of contributed to her brilliance, and she kind of becomes the best version of herself, I think, in that moment by making making that choice, where even faced with impossible odds, life-threatening situation, Rex is begging her to do it. He's like, no, I'm not going to kill these clones. Like, they were my brothers before they turned.
So you think Ahsoka made the right choice?
I think Ahsoka made the right choice. I think obviously Obi-Wan and Yoda killing clones. I honestly think they're justified too. In that situation, they don't know what the hell is happening. They, much more so than Ahsoka, can't mess around because of their goal when they were doing that, which is basically they were making a Hail Mary to try and save every possible Jedi by changing that signal that they could.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have as much room. They didn't have as much wiggle room in what they were trying to do. So although it hurts to see, it's understandable for me.
My ultimate take is that Ahsoka, I believe, is right, but I don't blame Obi-Wan and Yoda for doing what they did.
Yeah,
very similar.
That's my take.
Yeah. But yeah. So what do you got from the beginning of this episode?
Beginning of this episode. I mean, obviously, the opening shot, the ship in hyperspace, the music, it's absolutely insane. We see, Maul destroying the hyperdrive. That's interesting to me that Maul would do that, putting himself in great danger. I think that just caps off his character journey.
Yes and no.
For the Mandalorian, I think, or for that kind of caps off his journey through the Clone Wars. I think that his story in the Clone Wars is one of seeking revenge, and this is one final kind of act of empty revenge. He gains nothing. He's just doing it out of spite and hatred.
Yeah, he very much does that in Rebels.
It's his last crazed act, and that carries over into Rebels. That definitely carries over into Rebels.
He does a lot of weird, his entire death episode is basically just needless revenge. Yeah. What I really love, so I gotta say, seeing Jesse, who, is this kind-hearted soldier, he would do anything for the Republic, be transformed into this cold-blooded, man of the law, is horrifying.
Yeah.
And, you hate to see what those inhibitor chips do. It's horrifying what inhibitor chips do. And yeah, I'm personally horrified by it. But then we get to that choice that Ahsoka makes. I want to get to the choice Ahsoka makes between capturing Maul and saving Rex. Or some might say she chooses to save what she loves, not fight what she hates. And isn't that the whole point of Star Wars anyway?
Yeah.
This is very much what Rose was talking about in The Last Jedi. Ahsoka, Maul was never the point of this arc. The point of this arc was the relationship between Rex and Ahsoka and the War's relationship, and how those two relationships are going to come to some sort of conclusion after the war ends. That's just the bottom line to it. Maul was an ancillary idea, and to go after him only serves Ahsoka's own hatred, which does not go well for her. It would not go well for her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, side note, I think the opening of the hangar doors. Did you take note of that scene at all? And the moon shows up. I think that was an insane moment.
It is.
I love. Is so beautiful.
I adore this entire action sequence of the ship going down and them escaping in the Y-wing. By the way,
it's very cool.
By the way, Thomas Harper, we mentioned Y-Wings. Yay. But yeah, and I love actually the Y-Wing's representation of this because it's a Republic vehicle that later gets used by the Rebels. So it is this very transitionary ship. And, you know, the Republic goes crashing to the ground. The Star Destroyer represents all of what the Republic used to be and what its fate was, which is that it all went crashing to the ground. Which is shocking, and it's dramatic, and it's horrifying. And it's really terrifying. And I love the falling sequence. I love all that kind of stuff. And I love this. Can we go ahead to the flash forward a few years? I want to talk about the flash forward because I got a rant.
The Vader flash forward?
Yeah.
Before we get to that,
Absolutely.
I guess a few more notes I have. This is just such an amazing... I think while it doesn't stand on its own quite as well as the other ones because it's more action heavy, this is an amazing episode. This is an amazing sequence. The choice, again, another of Ahsoka's choices, the choice she makes to let Maul go and save Rex. Obviously, a little bit of an easier choice, I would say, but a great one for her. Nevertheless, the Y-Wing free fall is absolutely incredible. But just the absolute tragedy of seeing the clones kind of scramble, the rest of the clones scramble and struggle as Rex and Ahsoka make their escape, and realizing that those clones, through no fault of their own, through that chip, have now been sentenced to die in this burning, crashing ship. That is such a gut punch.
It really is. It is really, really terrible. It's terrible.
And I mean, the burial scene as well.
Burying the dead, yeah.
Yeah, it's great, I think, because I saw it almost as a funeral, a goodbye, not just for those clones, but for every clone. For the war itself, for the Republic, the last thing we see, it pans over, we see Jesse's helmet. That's the final helmet that's revealed with the Republic crest front and center. And for every clone,
all the other ones that have Ahsoka's markings on it.
Yeah, and the one, it's for every clone that we've ever known and loved. Through all these amazing Clone Wars stories, this is goodbye for them. This is one era ending and another beginning.
Yeah, nearly all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Now you can rant. Go right ahead.
So, I love seeing the original trilogy technologies in the flash forward and all that kind of stuff. To see those in Clone Wars animation is great. The Convoy is great. The Vader picking up the lightsaber, great. I gotta talk about the helmet in the snow, people. Let's do this. The helmet in the snow is one of the most beautiful shots in any Star Wars send tweet. The helmet in the snow is the entire symbolism of the war. The Empire is winning the Clone War. So Vader is, of course, reflected in that clone helmet. It's broken, shattered on the ground, just like the Republic is. It's this transitionary past. The helmet is painted like Ahsoka, showing their form, their former loyalty to her, and how that flipped on a dime with this inhibitor chip. And this is the shattered remains of a helmet of a soldier who, in the large scheme of things, didn't matter, but yet defined an entire era. There's a reason why this was called the Clone Wars. There's a reason why this conflict was called the Clone Wars, and yet we probably never saw this specific clone in the series. The helmet in the snow absolutely rocked my world on May 4th, 2020 when it came out. And I love it so much. It's why this episode is as good as it is for me. End of Tyrant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what must Vader have been thinking as he held Ahsoka's lightsaber?
Absolutely.
And the Convor as well.
The Convor, man. The Convor, man.
That hit me, because, oh my gosh. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it's such an amazing ending.
It is. Also,
Not
by the
just
way,
this moment.
somewhere in this is my other favorite thing about this thing. Somewhere in that helmet, there's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of bleak imagery in there. But you know what's also in that helmet? A tiny bit. If you squint really hard, you can see it.
The light.
Hope. And it's that one spark of hope that's gonna eventually light a fire that's gonna save the galaxy.
It will. It will indeed. But yeah, I mean, gosh, this is it. We are kissing the Clone Wars goodbye.
Absolutely.
As a podcast.
Can we quickly talk about the arrest of Sith?
Didn't we finish it?
Not
I guess
really.
we didn't talk about the No, we had a little more left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
by the way, I just want to mention this one. Obi-Wan saying, "I will take the child and watch over him." Coming May 27th, 2022. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, perfect timing.
On Disney Plus.
Perfect timing. Yeah, I mean, first off, going straight from Vader mourning Padme's death, from him realizing what he's done, straight to panning the panning shot on Naboo, and then we see that one like sunny shot before the funeral, just like realizing not only in the moment but over the course of time what Vader has given up in trying to save Padme, in trying to save their relationship, in trying to take everything and make a better life for himself, a life that he wants, a life without the Jedi. He has lost it all. And it makes me think back, and it breaks my heart, making me think back to, Attack of the Clones, just the two of them picnicking on Naboo, falling in love.
Yep.
3 years later, and it's all gone.
It's just tragic. I also gotta talk about Obi-Wan taking Luke to Owen and Burr on Tatooine. They end the Revenge of the Sith the same way they start New Hope, staring at the twin suns. It's as true then as it is. It's as true now as it is then. And it's going to be then. Even in all this darkness, there's always going to be that spark of hope, and that's what I love about Star Wars. This is the darkest Star Wars has ever been, and there's still hope.
Yeah, I love that as well. Just that ending shot, the twin suns. Goodness gracious, what a moment!
Perfect. Get chills every time I see it.
Yeah. It's just great.
And that's it for our coverage of the Clone Wars on Star Wars and the Galaxy.
Wow.
End of the era.
Can't believe
end
it.
of the prequel era.
Yeah.
We did it.
It's the end of an era.
It's the end of an era, but it's the start of a new one. Thank you so much for listening to Season 10 of Star Wars and the Galaxy. I forgot to mention, I took down all these memes, and now I can tell you officially there is a meme every 2 minutes and 16 seconds in Revenge of the Sith.
That's insane.
It is
insane.
Certifiably crazy. That is on average. There are gaps as short as 3 seconds and as long as 11.5 minutes. But the average of all of them is 2 minutes and 16 seconds. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to all of our coverage. We're gonna do a Revenge of the Sith and Clone Wars retrospective next week. We're gonna take the week off after that because of Celebration. We hope to see as many of you possible there because we're going to be at Celebration on Friday, and on Saturday and Sunday. We're not going to be on Friday, but the last 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be there, and we're so excited. Then we're going to do our full Clone Wars retrospective, and then, Jacob, we're going to be taking a look. We're going to be taking a look at some more clones, but which specific clones, Jacob?
We will be taking a look at the Bad Batch.
Absolutely, we will.
One and only.
The one and only Bad Batch. And we're excited to cover all of that. But thank you so much for listening to all of our coverage of all of this, all of this Clone Wars content. Follow us on Twitter at InAGalaxyPod, Instagram at Star Wars InAGalaxy. Listen to us. Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you listen to your podcast, we'll be there. If we're not, slbinagalaxy@gmail.com. Email us. Leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really does help with our visibility. And in the meantime, may the Force be with you, but not just now, but always.